Sir, as you laid out, in a 2 months back conference on infrastructure, stating that we are going to spend in the next 5-year plan, starting from 1st of April, about $350 to $360 billion. I think the need of Indians, and especially it is the growth of India is really dependent on infrastructure, and we all accept it. The worry which we have, sir, is that how we are going to finance it and how the policy framework of this infrastructure is made public as fast as possible. So I would like to hear from you your views, sir. How do we create innovative strategies? Is government doing some public-private partnership on that or anything else? And how the new innovative way of financing can be done? And in this, I would like to leave one thought to you because you talked about SAARC. Can Asian country create an Asian currency which could finance Asia? How the euro dollar came into picture? Because by 2009, 2010, we might have a $5 trillion of funds available in Asia, and there'll be another $5 trillion maybe available in Middle East, and that all goes to waste in just buying bonds and selling goods. Is there any thought on this which the audience could understand from you, sir?
Well, let me say that I do not believe that I think the time is right for an Asian currency like the euro. I think having a common currency requires a degree of coordination of domestic economic policies, which is not clearly in sight in Asia today, but that is a dream, that is an ambition we all should have, that one day I think the convergence of our economic policy would lead us not only to a common market, a community of Asian countries, but also a common currency. Now, coming back to your first questions about infrastructure, I think there are a lot of good things are happening. If you had asked me 5 years from now, 5 years before today, I could not have imagined that our investment rate would rise to 34% of our GDP, that our savings rate would rise to about 32% of our GDP. And given the young profile of our labor force, in years to come, India's savings rate will rise very substantially. And I am confident that if we continue to create an environment conducive to promotion of risk-taking, promotion to savings, lack of resources is not going to be a problem for financing the needs of our infrastructure. That doesn't mean that we do not require new strategies, new ways of looking at things. We need a strong, vibrant debt market for long-term investment, because public utilities require a long-term perspective. They require ability to mobilize funds from the markets on a long-term basis, and therefore that is one area where we need to move and move fast enough. But instrumentalities like the public-private partnerships are now well established. Now, the viability gap funding is truly well established. And I am hopeful that whether you look at roads, whether you look at telecommunication, whether you look at airports, whether you look at seaports, or our railways, there will be new experiments of public-private partnerships. I think a lot of exciting things are happening in our country, but being too close to the events, we don't notice them.
We have a question from media, I think. Pranjal?
Sir, I'm Pranjal Sharma from TV Today. The policy on special economic zone was supposed to take India to the brave new world where we could take on the manufacturing might of China. But today, political parties are suspicious of it. The farmers feel that their land is being taken away very unfairly. The civil society represented by NGOs think that this policy is extremely subversive. Would you think that there are deep flaws in the special economic zone policy? And would you be looking at completely overhauling it?
Well, let me say that the special economic zone as an instrument of economic policies have come to stay. But in the process of implementation, we have been exposed to certain problems which cannot be dismissed. And I think it is the strength of our democracy that if we find that there are some flaws in our policies, we can and we do set in motion mechanisms to redress those gaps in our performance. And one of the gaps is that when it comes to acquiring land for public purposes, there have been inadequacies in compensation designs, in ensuring that all the stakeholders who suffer in the process of land acquisition, their interests are in fact taken into account. We will redress these concerns. A more humane, more effective, more just policy with regard to resettlement of land ousties is in the process of being formulated. And pending that, there is, I think, some delay in going ahead with the announced policies of the government with regard to special economic zone. But I do believe that we should address these concerns if we want the policy to succeed in the long term. India is a democracy. Democracy sometimes seems to be fickle-minded, but I do believe that is our strength. These are decisions which are in many ways irreversible decisions, and therefore it is very important that before we move, if there are any gaps in performance, gaps in design, gaps in implementation, we should halt a little bit, even though it takes time, but the cost of delay are going to be much less than the cost that would arise if wrong-headed policies were bulldozed, regardless of the human, social, and economic consequence.
I'll take the last question. General Malik. General Malik.
Sir, we've truly enjoyed and benefited from your thoughts on India's role in challenges for the new brave world. My question is very small compared to the subject that you have just now, on which you have spoken. My question, sir, pertains to the demand being made by a political party in Jammu and Kashmir on demilitarization, or troops reduction, and some other connected issues. I feel that it's an important demand being made because it has impact. I'm not saying that the demand is should be conceded, but it has several implications. It has an implication that the professional assessments can be marginalized for political expediency. It has implications that we may have problems of center-state relations, coalition, political coalition partnership, and even, I would say, politicization of security, national security issue in larger context. We are all getting the impression that the political expediency is perhaps taking over or marginalizing professional advice on such matters. May I have your views on this subject, sir? Two things. Firstly, that how do you look at this? And secondly, I think we all in the nation would like to have your assurance that professional advice on such matters will not be marginalized for political expediency.
Well, let me say unambiguously, professional advice, wherever relevant, will be given full scope, and there's no question of marginalizing it. Therefore, I think that misunderstanding or misapprehension, I think, has no basis. The other thing that I would like to say is we are in the process of discussing these matters with Mufti Sahib. He has come at my invitation, and I would not like to conduct a dialogue with him through the media or through public parties. It's not proper for me to enter into any discussion on this subject.
Thank you very much.